Okay, so a very good morning to everyone who's joined us today, and welcome on behalf of One Nucleus and Medilink to our webinar on collaborating to supporting biotech and medtech across our neighbouring regions. So I'm Alicia Galliers, BD Manager at One Nucleus, and it's excellent to see such a brilliant registration and turnout for our session this morning. And just to provide just a recap, so the focus of our session today is really on learning about the activities and the support that both Medilink and One Nucleus are offering to their respective regions and network. And also because we understand that collaborating can also enhance and help our members' own growth, this session is intended to be about learning and sharing ideas and encouraging knowledge exchange, excuse me, as well. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen for a quick recap of the agenda. Excuse me. So the format is going to be firstly a presentation from Darren Clark at Medilink, which will be a whistle-stop tour of Medilink's activities. And then we're going to follow that with the same format from Tony Jones at One Nucleus. Following this, we're going to hear from a case study from both Medilink and One Nucleus members, and they're going to provide an overview of how they've engaged and worked with each of the respective groups. And then finally, we're going to open up the session to questions from attendees. So just to cover some of the housekeeping, I'm sure you're all very familiar. So whilst we are doing the first section on the presentations, I'd be very grateful if you can remain muted. And then in terms of asking questions, you can utilise the chat box whilst both Darren and Tony and even the case study members are speaking. So you can drop those into the chat box and I will pick those up at the end. And then moving on, when we get to the end of the session for the Q&A, at that point, we may choose to make it a bit more interactive. So if you want to raise hand, then I can keep a lookout for those as well. So also just to add that I am recording the session this morning. Okay, so if I just stop my screen share there. So without more from myself, Darren, I'm going to hand to you. So if you'd like to share your screen and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Hopefully my screen's about to share. Can you see that?
Looks good. Yep, perfect.
Great. As Alicia said, it's great to see so many people here today. I'll probably just add a little bit to what Alicia said about the reason for Medilink and One Nucleus looking to do this event. It's really conversation we've had over a number of years about how we can work more closely together, and I think more recently has been picked up through some discussions about increased support, particularly for medical technology companies in the east of England. On the back of that, myself and Tony had a bit of a conversation to say it would probably be worthwhile starting to try and do some collaborative activities, the first of which is today's, which is really an introduction to both of our networks. And really what we're hoping to get from this is a bit of feedback from everybody here as to what more could we be doing to bring the two communities together, and how can we support those communities across the wider region that we represent. All I'm going to do is try and do a very quick run through of Medilink Midlands and just give a bit of a flavour for who we are and the sorts of things that we do. And then, as Alicia says, one of our member companies will pick up afterwards on a case study, just to hopefully give a bit more of a flavour of the sorts of things we've been able to support them with. So if my slideshow moves on. There you go. So as an organisation, we're a not-for-profit membership-based organisation. Our ethos is really to bring like-minded organisations together across the Midlands who share a passion for life sciences to help that community, particularly businesses, establish, develop and grow. We have a network of over 1,500 organisations across the Midlands. and 232 members, of which the largest proportion are medical technology businesses, and pretty much vast majority of them are SMEs, and particularly in the micro and small size. So whilst we do cover the biotech and pharma industries, that's a much smaller proportion of our network in our community, which is really, I think, just a reflection of the life science sector across the Midlands, being much more medical technology and engineering focused than, for example, in the east of England. The region that we cover spans from the Welsh borders in the west across to the Lincolnshire coast, in the north bordering on Yorkshire and Manchester, and then where we do have in the south some overlap with east of England is in the sort of the Bedfordshire area, where we essentially cover the sort of North London commuter belt around Milton Keynes. I should highlight on this slide that I've noticed that Leicestershire have been missed off our list of counties, but we do actually cover Leicestershire, so apologies to any of our Leicestershire members on here. You are still included. We are also part of a national network. So Medilink UK is a strategic alliance of regional organisations that came together to represent our organisations on a national basis. As Medilink East Midlands and West Midlands, it was at the time, we were founding members of Medilink UK back in 2005. And as a collective, we've been providing support to the sector for getting on for 3 decades, actually. And collectively, it's one of the largest, or the largest, representative body for life science companies in the country, with a membership of around 1,500 companies across all of those regional organisations. It includes 3 organisations that use the Medilink branding in their region, so ourselves, North of England and South West, and then 2 associate organisations, so SATA in the South East and Medi Wales in Wales. That map, I think, clearly shows there is a noticeable absence there, which is east of England, which again is part of the reason for doing this event and some of our ongoing conversations. So what do we actually do? So as Medilink, our main activity is really to act as a connector and a facilitator. So we always talk about that we sit at the centre of an ABC network, which is an academic, business and clinician community. Coming very much from that business perspective, where we look to help our businesses by connecting and linking them up to others who can help their businesses develop. So that includes linking, connecting to other businesses, to government departments and bodies such as Department of International Trade, and regionally the Midlands Engine, and also other business support organisations such as the Chambers. So it's really about how do we link those businesses into that wider business community. But then equally in this sector, it's just as important for them to connect up to the academic base and the clinical base. And we are associated with a wide range of, so not only the universities, but initiatives that come out of those universities, and have representation on a number of the bodies and the steering groups for initiatives and infrastructure activities and programs that run through the universities and academia. So the most exciting of those for us at the moment is the MTIF facility, or Medical Technology Innovation Facility, that's recently opened at Nottingham Trent University in Nottingham, which is a 2-site facility whose sole focus and purpose is to help medtech businesses to develop their new products and new services, and they offer a range of facilities and specialist support in order to do that. From an academic point of view, our key interactions are probably with the AHSNs. So we have contracts with both the East Midlands and the West Midlands AHSN to provide business support services, particularly focused at helping our regional SMEs to engage with the NHS and bring innovations through. But then we also work with other trusts and initiatives such as the Centre for Healthcare Equipment Adoption, Nottingham University, so CHEETA, and the Clinical Trials Unit at Derby, which again are really all about how do we support our companies to work with the NHS and to develop their products for that market. So how do we actually deliver support? Well, one of the primary ways is really having a team of advisors who provide advice and guidance to those companies. So I know a number of them are on the meeting today. That group help companies by providing them specialist advice, which particularly focused around innovation. So for us, primary focus is really innovation, new product development, and how do we help companies bring new technologies to market. But we also support with market access and supply chain, which again in the Midlands, there's a significant supply chain grouping and activity there. And so joining all of that up is important. As well as that specific advice, we help by signposting companies to funding and opportunities. So part of that funding is funding we have ourselves, but also then to the other funding opportunities that are out there. Back to the facilitation and linking, so making introductions is a key part of it. And then lastly, delivering events, and that includes networking events and training activities. Typically, we'd be delivering 30 to 40 events a year when they were face-to-face. Having gone virtual like everybody else, then that's actually significantly increased. And last year, we delivered over 100 webinar events during the year. Through our project activity, we do actually provide a range of funding as well. So grant funding that we administer, that's European, so ERDF funding that we're the project lead for delivering, and that's to provide funding out to our SMEs. Again, that funding is primarily focused at supporting companies to develop new technologies and bring innovations to market. So there are a range of grants available there that really about procuring specialist external expertise, undertaking evaluations of new products, and supporting them in developing new collaborations through specialist networking, so attendance at conferences and events. I think Emma is on the call today from Spirit, and I won't dwell too much on this because we've got another case study coming up shortly. But really, this to give a sort of quick view. So Spirit is one of our companies based in Leicestershire. Through the support we provided, we've been able to give them a grant to help them do market research on a new product and program looking at supporting COPD patients, help them connect up to the business gateway in Leicestershire so that they could look for new premises. Through our special interest groups, they developed new collaborations, and we were able to facilitate an introduction to the HSN, all of which results in them rapidly growing their business from 20 to 130 employees in 3 years. And supporting a range of NHS, so GP practices and CCGs. This slide just gives us sort of a wider view of what we achieved in the last, this is about 7 years of activity now. So over that time, Medilink has secured more than 10 million of European funding that is then administered out to its companies. So we act as the coordinator of that program and provide the funding out to our member companies. Supported over 1,000 businesses, created more than 500 jobs, established more than 70 new collaborations with the academic base, and as a result of that, more than 200 new products have been brought to market. And that's where I will leave it. So I say it's very much a whistle stop, but hopefully that gives people a good idea of who we are and the sorts of things we do. And I will stop sharing my screen now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Darren. Perfect. Okay, so moving on then to Tony Jones. So Tony, I'm going to share the slide deck here. So just bear with me. Here we go.
Thanks, Alicia.
No worries. So I'll just move that along as and when. Okay.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. And for those who I've not met yet, either online or in person, then I'm Tony Jones and I head up One Nucleus, which I will tell you a brief overview of as we go through, if we move along. So who are One Nucleus? So we're not for profit. We're funded by member subscription from around about 425, 430 corporate members. And we were set up back in 1997 as two separate entities at that point. There was something called URBI in the east of England, and there was a London Biotechnology Network, which I led down in London for several years. And then 2010, we merged the two together because I guess the questions externally had changed at that point. The sector had developed a lot over the first 10 years or so of our existence. And the questions changed from, well, who else is doing this just down the road, to, well, who do you know in San Diego or Stockholm or Queensland? Because everyone was looking much more globally. And we felt we could support that life sciences sector better if we combined forces between London Biotech Network and URBI, and that formed One Nucleus. So there's 10 of us in the office, and we try and stay focused on helping our members being globally competitive. And I'll come through some of the activities we do. And I guess our home patch is very much the sort of London, Cambridge, east of England slice. In the context here, it's the east of England we've been talking a long time about, I guess, as Darren mentioned, and the complementarity that there could be between the two sides, because our history from a One Nucleus perspective has been very dominated by the biopharma space rather than the medical technology. And that reflects a number of the activities that we do. So if we move along. So where are we? I mean, I guess I haven't done this necessarily as a county map, as we saw with Darren, because we've always existed as a membership group with sort of fuzzy edges. So we didn't start from a government funding base to be regional. So it's always been driven, even though we centered on London and Cambridge as those initial outputs, actually membership has always been wider. And these are all parks and partners of One Nucleus, where a lot of the companies that we work with are based. So as much as we move along in the slides, I'll show you where the membership makeup comes from. So you'll see the big chunk of our membership is in that Cambridge, East of England corridor, and then London, for those historic reasons. And that's where we tend to do all our events when they're physical. And I suppose nominally, I still sort of feel in my head we're in that space, even when we're online, we could be anywhere. And then there's about a quarter of them that are spread across the UK, and then around about 7 or 8% are international. And those international companies generally are engaging because they want to engage in the ecosystem we have. So it's then looking into the UK and looking for partners, investors, customers, and routes to market. And the membership also then ranges from global pharma like AstraZeneca, Roche, and Lilly, right the way down to spin-out companies, academic groups, entrepreneurs. And as you'll see the breakup on the right-hand side, then the primary R&D in therapeutics and healthcare, along with the contract development and manufacturing and contract research companies doing that innovation. We'll hear from one of the case studies a little later. I tend to group them together because that's something we've noticed has changed so dramatically over recent years, where the outsourcing and that interface between what's a service provider as opposed to what's primary R&D, when most of the innovation is happening quite often outside of the primary R&D company, it's outsourced. very much more partnership-like than it is client to sponsor, or provider to sponsor. Then there's the research tools companies that are providing those reagents and platforms. We also then include the business operation services, and that includes investors, legal, IP, facilities providers, and the science parks I'd mentioned on the previous slide as part of that infrastructure we all need. And something we did when we merged was moved away from having this differential pricing strategy for membership, whether you're a primary R&D or service provider or professional services, because fundamentally we need all of those bits of the jigsaw to work, including the governmental and the other membership groups engaging. We need all this to work as an ecosystem. So we generally tend to go now with, we differentiate on the basis of whether someone's a member or not a member. We have different levels of membership, but I won't go into those today. And I think so it's membership versus non-membership in terms of status. We do very few things that we don't have non-members allowed to attend. They just pay more to be happen, as a pay-as-you-go model for some. And I don't think you can differentiate excellence on the basis of business model, which was the theory behind that. As we move on. So I thought maybe I'd just use this slide really to say what are the focus areas of our activities and how we approach things. And it generally falls into these 4 quarters for us. Yeah, if we could stick on that one for a minute. And so a big part of it is around innovation support. Now, whether that's signposting to government support and grants available.
Sorry, Tony, I think it's got animation built into it. So I'm just going to,
okay.
Yes.
So yeah, the innovation support is that it's about profiling to ensure people are aware of what other members are doing in the wider network. Are we able to go back?
Yeah, I'm just going to stop the share.
Right,
one
okay.
second, and then I'll share it in a smaller view. Sorry, and I think this should hopefully work if I just do this and click here,
Okay.
and present it like that, and then
Okay.
do full screen.
Right. So yeah, the innovation support is about joining dots as well as signposting. So it's about trying to ensure that where companies are growing and they need advice, then we have great legal advisors in the network. They're key to making assets tradable, whether that's tradable through deals or investment. The events, again, the online profile in the directory. And we've just launched something called the Virtual Innovation Center, which came out of us looking at, we have a plethora and an ever-growing number of accelerator programs and innovation center type approaches that were very focused on startup and relatively early stage. And it was a case of, well, what happens to them beyond that? How do we help companies grow with a trajectory that would keep them on a steep upward direction where possible? And through the ecosystem we have, then we didn't need to be limited by physical capacity or indeed a local network when we're connected globally. So the Virtual Innovation Center, I'll touch upon after this slide, but I'll just cover the other areas. So another part of what we do, we're funded by members, so we don't have a responsibility or remit that's measured by inward investment or job creation / protection. Our loyalty lies to our members. But of course, we want the region to be successful. We want the UK to be successful. So we'll support the IT and the wider region we're in as best we can when it comes to providing data and presenting the R&D pipeline opportunity and investment that's happening. Obviously, the promotion of the strengths of the region, whether that's at conferences or whether it's in our own communications and reports. We attend a number of events like Bio and Bio Europe. We've tended not to be present as one nucleus at the med technology type events of Medica and Arab Health and things, which I guess, Darren, we can come back to later, but that's been more of a domain of the Medilink side of our sector. Having partnering days with various large corporates who just want to present to our network of what they're looking for, and through collaborations such as this locally, but actually with collaborations with groups like ourselves on East and West Coast and of the US and across Europe and Asia so that we can try and bring awareness of where opportunities lie globally for our membership. Events, I'll deal with some of these in more detail later on, but that obviously a big part of what we do is getting people together, whether that's virtually or when we get the chance physically. And there's a whole range of those, from the larger conferences such as Genesis and on Helix, right the way down to some very targeted roundtables, often closed meetings where we want thought leaders together who are dealing with common challenges, and therefore what can we try and work with the network we have to address for everyone's benefit. And then the final quarter is more of a focus we've had. We've always focused on helping companies recruit through advertising their jobs and connecting to pools of talent. But we've tried to broaden that a little bit now and focus more on the broader people aspect, which we see more and more of the feedback from those seeking and building careers and new jobs, and through the recruitment process, of how important the value and alignment of the employer is. So as much as, I guess, I was brought up in an era when you looked for a job, and if they paid you, then you went where the work was, and that was the value. There's been a huge shift in the drive towards the kind of ESG and CSR type aspects of aligning and being good corporate citizens. And we work with our members to share good practice and debate what's going on around that space. We then have special interest groups around skills and HR, and working more and more with patient and patient-led groups and research charities to try and engage them fully as our companies try and be more and more patient-centric. And we have a training course portfolio which we provide. And towards the end of this month, we'll have our first careers conference called Building Life Science Adventures, which isn't remotely aimed at being a jobs fair, and far from it. This is about bringing panels of both career builders and employers together to talk about what works and what doesn't work, if we want to attract and nurture the best labour pool and talent pool we can have for the sector. And we can move on. I'll tell you a bit about the Virtual Innovation Centre. So the Virtual Innovation Centre, as I mentioned, it was about leveraging our ecosystem for those companies who are trying to grow quickly and expand, attract investment, do good deals, be international, become more operational. So about setting up their first labs and helping them with our purchasing scheme and logistics and project management of that, which we offer. So it's really about saying we've got this wonderfully rich ecosystem of expertise, know-how, and connections. How do we make that available to these growing companies? And it can be across any of those areas that are on the screen. And on the next slide, there's a little bit more detail, and I'll be more than happy to discuss with anyone as we get to that, or if they don't need some follow-up stuff. Yeah, we move on. So it's a 12-month program for those companies where they're post-startup phase. These are established companies, probably after 1 or 2 rounds of funding, and they can be from anywhere. They haven't got to be local. There'll be a series of workshops for them with leading advisors and connections we have, and that could be around what to expect in due diligence when you're doing deals in the US with the likes of, you see the partner companies there, Fisher & Richardson involved, Taylor Wessing and others. George James helping us on the leadership aspect and how you build the right boards and senior leadership teams. Accessing resources through us. So how can they get to business intelligence, competitor intelligence? Thermo Fisher helping us on helping those companies set up their laboratories and purchasing of lab supplies. And then others like Catalent and Lonza in the support and advice around the product development side. As you'll see, a lot of this and the phrasing of it reflects the fact that our history is in the biopharma element of things, and I'm keen that we leverage and work with collaborators like the MediLink Midlands to say, how can we offer this more broadly to the region in terms of the medical technology side? So there will be the workshops, but the real value for this program will be the one-to-one sessions those companies get behind closed doors with those advisors, where they can really flesh out both their strengths, but also the gaps and what they need to do. So that will be kicking off. We've launched it. The first program will start in April. And we're recruiting companies now and taking applications for people to apply. We're envisaging 2 cohorts of 6 companies, 6 months apart each year. And if we move on. So I mentioned a lot of what we do is about profiling of our members. And that could be because they're looking for research partners. It could be because they're looking for investors. It could be because they're looking for customers. And it could be the profiling is there just because others need to know why to go and talk to them when they're looking for advice. And those are the mechanisms we have. So we have a pretty active program of profiling, whether that's in the annual review or monthly newsletters. Social media, of course, has become pivotal to a lot of this, and a lot of our members, we encourage them, if they tag us into their posts, then we will share them onward to our community, and then attending conferences, doing blogs and our own events. And it's interesting, Darren, you mentioned about the increase in volume of events, and we've gone online and we've seen exactly the same thing. I think we looked in the office a few months back and Alicia had spent an enormous amount of hours on Zoom as our lead events person. So I think but then the engagement has been really quite proactive and quite selective as well. So the topics people are really engaging in, they're not joining just for networking, which would have been the case for some events. They're actually selecting the topics where they want that information. And if we move on. So the networking and the partnering becomes a key element of any membership group. And these are just some of the things we do. So the networking sessions, I think it's proven difficult, if not impossible, for everybody to say they can replicate the face-to-face networking in an online event. We've tried various formats, and we do something once a month that Alicia runs called My Question Is, which is basically people submit questions that they'd like to talk about in small groups if they were gathering around a beer or two at events. And it could be on anything. And then we select 5 or 6 of those, and the rest of the delegates are randomly allocated to small groups of 5 or 6 to talk about that particular question. And then the feedback at the end shares that insight and thought with the rest of the group. But I think for me, the reason we started them was to get beyond the kind of group therapy, group meeting type things of you were in the breakout room, you introduced yourself and your company, and then you moved on somewhere else before you actually got to know anybody. Having something to talk about seems to encourage people to follow up more. Bio Wednesdays have always been our staple monthly member meeting that we started as London Biotech Network. I think the first one was June 2000, and we've run hundreds of them since. And they've been very successful online, and my intention is that we see them remain online, because geographically people can engage in that session from much wider than we were seeing face-to-face. But actually focusing more than face-to-face on some pure networking sessions. Innovation seminars are a bit more in-depth. They can be whole days or half days. And generally they are run with one of our partners or sponsors that wants to engage our network around key topics. And that could be key topics in R&D. So it could be formulation, it could be key business challenges. Or indeed some of the business intelligence sessions are more like round tables. And some of those are closed, where we look at stuff that's coming through in terms of changes in employment law and how a company is going to deal with that, or how do you do business in China. We held a very successful one when we were still doing face-to-face with Mills and Reeve, with the likes of AstraZeneca, sharing their insights from what they learned, and a valuable insight for others to follow. And I mentioned the partnering days and then collaborative events, both with UK and international groups. We can bring interesting sets of members together to raise awareness of opportunity. And if we move on to the conferences, I think I've probably spoken enough about those in many respects. The summaries are there and will be in the recordings. But again, we learned a lot through having to go digital last year for both of our main events, for On Helix and Genesis. Like everyone else, we're keen to get face-to-face elements back. On Helix this year is scheduled for the first week of July, which I guess there's a part of me looked at the announcement about 21st of June and all social restrictions gone and felt great, we can all rush back. But actually, just because you could doesn't mean you should, I guess, in my mind. And certainly most of the network I'm speaking to will be a gently approach to back into face-to-face conferencing and networking, probably quite local. So we'll certainly planning for a digital On Helix. Whether we can add any elements of a face-to-face part of that back, then we will keep that under review. I'm more optimistic for the 9th of December in Genesis that we can actually gather face to face by then, unless something goes badly wrong. Although we will look at a new format in the light of this last year, where rather than gathering 650, 700 people in one venue in London for a day, what's really worked well this year has been the online innovation workshops and breakout type sessions you normally see at a conference, where people can engage from further afield, and not having those clashing with other sessions or the main program. So the idea is to have the one main day in London in a slightly smaller venue, and then retaining some of the online activity. And for both the On Helix and Genesis, having that digital option means that every member can have a free digital pass and be part of our main conferences. After all, we do them for our members primarily and their benefit. So if we can race through the last bits, then as I mentioned, we have a training course portfolio, and they cover everything from some of the compliance courses around where you need to be accredited for handling lab gases and operating safely. But also some that are more around the what used to be called softer skills, but I guess now they're more essential skills in the modern workplace, such as presentation skills and project management and so forth. And some introductory courses for things like drug development and management for those who are new to that scene. I've mentioned the Careers Conference and would welcome anybody engaging. It's free to attend. We've got a number of generous sponsors, I think, who want to align and realize what we're doing actually we need to do for the sector longer term. So the idea is that we create great careers in great companies, and that means it's free to attend thanks to those sponsors and supporters. And of course, because we've been digital, we've developed this growing archive of recorded sessions which people can go back to. And we're finding a lot of people wanting access to those, mainly as learning opportunities where they want to learn about different parts of the sector. And we have a monthly People Pathways newsletter, which flags up current vacancies with members and topics around learning and development, recent movers and shakers in the sector if they've gone from one company to another, and some the heads up on upcoming courses that people can engage in. I think we must be getting close to the end now if we carry on. I mentioned savings. We have this group purchasing scheme, so there's 7 preferred suppliers that we tender those contracts for once every 3 or 5 years. And gold members get to vote on who they like as the preferred supplier. And it's based generally on what are the best deals and discounts they can offer that are tailored to our member companies and what they're buying. Generally, they focus around lab supplies, but also then stationery and office stuff, IT equipment, and lab equipment. A lot of people save a lot of money there. So we save our members around about 4 million a year off the list price of those supplies. Basically, we don't get involved in the purchasing or that ordering. They just get tagged in. The cornerstone for us is Thermo Fisher. They get tagged in their system as a One Nucleus Gold member and therefore get the discount pricing automatically. Then we have a marketplace, which is less preferred supplier. Any member can offer services at a discount to other members through the marketplace. And then we work with a number of groups like EBD and Bio New Jersey and Bio to get our members the best discounts they can at those big global conferences. We have a facilities management service and the members get discounted rates for that. But this is where one of my colleagues, we hire him out as a consultant to project manage and design labs for companies moving around and growing, helping them find the space as well as kit it out and so forth. And then obviously members get discounts on all our training and events and profiling options. We are a global network. I don't need for One Nucleus to be an international organization. I think we just need good friends around the world. And we've got really strong relationships with the likes of Biocom, MassBio, Quebec Life Sciences, but also J-Link in Japan. And Aline in our office sits on the board of the Council of European Bioregions, which is 30 or more bioclusters from around Europe getting together to see how we can help support each other's companies and regions. And I think I'll just leave you with the summary. And I think that's, we're centric on this region. We're not exclusive to it. We're membership and we have great international connectivity for that to help our members. and it's about supporting converting innovation into great products and great companies, and that's our whole driver. And again, coming back to Darren's earlier mention, looking at ourselves being neighbours geographically in the UK, if we can support the medical technology companies in the East of region, not by reinventing wheels, but actually by working with those who are already doing this. We don't tend to lead on the public sector funded projects and so forth. We're more than happy to signpost towards them, but it's not our forte to lead on them in the way that perhaps Darren's team do. But it is about raising the profile and connecting to partners, investors and customers, and sharing good practice. And that's us. So any ideas of how we could do better, then we're all ears. I think that's me done.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Tony. And just apologies for the small issue in the slide share. I hope everyone could still see that okay. So I think also just to highlight that whilst the respective presentations are useful for those who are less familiar with the networks, we also like to think that perhaps if you're an existing member of MediLink or One Nucleus, then that actually can serve as a useful recap. You know, if it's been a while since maybe you've had an overview of the respective offers. So hopefully for everyone online today, that was a useful recap there for both of the networks. So we're now going to move on to the part of the session where we hear case study examples from two members who are going to share examples of their or how they've had engagements with MediLink and One Nucleus and how we've worked together. So I'd firstly like to hand to Quintin Hayes, who has been with Shaw Pulse Medical for 3 years as commercial manager and has extensive history, so I think over 20 years working with Big Pharma. So Quintin, I'm going to hand to you first to talk about your engagements with MediLink. Thank you. Oh, and you're muted. Sorry.
Myself, fall at the first fence. Thanks very much, Alicia. I hope you can hear me. You can hear me okay?
Indeed, yeah.
Good. So thanks very much for the opportunity to share our experience of working with MediLink over in the East Midlands. I'll tell you a bit about Shaw Pulse, who we are, just to set the scene and give you a flavour of our interactions with East Midlands MediLink, now MediLink Midlands, and also maybe just reflect at the end on making the most of the opportunity and how it's worked for us. Shaw Pulse, we're based in Nottingham. We're a vital signs monitoring company committed to enhancing the lives of newborn babies. So one of our central tenets is to give every baby the best possible start in life, which I'm sure everyone here can buy into. We're a spin out of the University of Nottingham. We were formed 5 or 6 years ago out of the electronic and electrical engineering department at the University of Nottingham in collaboration with the clinical team at the Nottingham University Hospitals. So a lot of our development and clinical trial work has been done at the Queen's Medical Centre, which many of you will be familiar with. So since I joined 3 years ago, I'm not saying because of it, but since I joined, we've got our CE approval for our first device, which is our heart rate monitor, a wireless heart rate monitor for newborn babies. So we're at the stage now of commercialization, firstly through real world evidence gathering and then full commercialization. This activity should have commenced really last year, but as we all know, last year was a bit of a strange year and this year continues to be. So, you know, we have had to think on our feet and move with the times, which is, I'm sure, one of the common challenges faced by many other SMEs represented on the meeting today. We're hoping to hear any day soon on our US FDA 510K submission, which will be tremendously exciting if we get that and opens new opportunities. And we're a great, we're a great advert for UK PLC. Pretty much everything we do, 90% of the manufacturing, the assembly and test, the plastics, the fabrics are manufactured in the East Midlands. So it's a great note that that Medilink are supportive of and wins us plaudits when we're exhibiting abroad. So that's who we are, Short Pulse. Medilink, we've been members, I think, since 2017 and enjoy a very close working relationship with the team there, with Neil Barnes, with Costa, with Darren, Joe, Sam, Becky, the whole team. There's not many weeks that go by without some interaction. We're very proud to be winners of a couple of the regional business awards, and these are great awards for PR, for credibility with the NHS and with overseas markets. So they really are something to get involved in. Medilink have been very supportive with funding. Darren mentioned a few of the funding routes, and I think we've taken advantage of most of them. The innovation support grants have supported 2 major projects. We have a trial grant that we're sort of in the process of hopefully securing. We've had networking grants with travel, conference support, and all sorts, and they really have been valuable to a startup organisation. As I think Darren said, one of the things that Medilink excel at is connecting us with organisations. So, we've through and with them our relationships with the AHSN, with the Department for International Trade, with BioCity, with Cheetah, with MD Tech. These are all part of very much of our ecosystem, and Medilink are a great facilitator in helping us with those interactions. Medilink are also useful, very useful in terms of helping us with our stage of progress, our clinical evaluations, accessing the NHS, and I'm very interested to hear that one nucleus, Tony, might be we're looking to move into the medtech arena more, because this is certainly an area where we could see some interest. It wouldn't be right not to mention the webinars. I think Joe and the team, the East Midlands Medilink, have done an amazing job in the last 12 months in providing a really interesting series of webinars. I didn't realise there are 100 that have happened. I know I've been on quite a few, and they really do fit in well with this sort of working from home model. It means you can allocate an hour or 2 of diary time and not have to give up half a day. The coffee's better at home. It fits in well with working from home, but nothing will replace that handshake. Nothing will replace that face-to-face networking, and we really look forward, as I'm sure many people on the call today would share with me, to getting back to a face-to-face environment. But some of the webinars that have really been useful around NHS market access. There was one, Reimagining Healthcare Post-COVID, which was very interesting, digital marketing in healthcare, and helping with the minefield of where SMEs are with post-EU or with Brexit and the transition from MDD to MDR regulation, how all that works. Those have been really useful sessions. So I hope I haven't overdone it in terms of blowing the trumpet, but I do think that it's worth SMEs getting engaged with Medilink and these facilitating organisations, because it's extremely useful. If it's not direct help with them, then it's indirect, because their contact base is huge, and they will always, if they don't know an answer to something, they can find someone that will know an answer. So it's been really helpful. I think there are some very exciting opportunities ahead. The merge with West Midlands to make Midlands Medilink is exciting. It opens up new opportunities, not only in terms of collaborations and introductions, but things like the Midlands engine are exciting to watch. And it's been great to hear about One Nucleus and their ambition towards medtech as well. So I think my final point is for SMEs in particular. Reach out to West Midlands. They really do get it. They get SMEs. They understand our challenges. Whether that's around adoption, around internationalisation, around funding, around picking through, the NHS and its sometimes slow uptake of medtech. There's a lot of wealth of experience there, and we're very happy partners with them. So happy to take any questions on that, and I'll hand over to the next speaker. Thanks, Alicia.
Thanks, Quintin. Thank you for sharing those insights, and some of the things you highlighted. Can definitely see sort of similar activities in terms from our own network. And I agree with you on the webinars. They've been a real saving grace, actually, especially at the start of the pandemic, in terms of just keeping in touch and more sort of the human side as well as the learning. So I definitely see how they were vital. So moving on now to Sophie Rose, who joins us from Metrion Biosciences. So Sophie is Sales and Marketing Manager and has been in her role since 2018. I think that's correct, Sophie. And you have a varied role, including new business generation, plus strategic sales and marketing. So over to you for your experiences with One Nucleus. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Alicia. That's a very kind introduction, and lovely to hear from you, Quintin, and congratulations on your wireless heart monitor approval. I'm from Nottingham, was born at the QMC, so yeah, very interesting to hear about what you guys do, so thank you. Thanks, Tony, as well, for an excellent summary of One Nucleus, and Darren as well for your summary. It was, yeah, great to hear from everybody. So I'll just give a very brief introduction to Metrion and what we do, and then just talk a little bit about how we've been supported by One Nucleus over the years. So Metrion is a company focused on premium ion channel drug discovery services. We work across the industry to a CRO service. We offer cardiac safety profiling of potential drug compounds, assay development, and neuroscience screening, including native tissue work. So we also provide iPSC-derived cardiomyocyte assays and a fully integrated drug discovery service. So you may be familiar with Metrion, you might not. We were a spin out from Zentian. We're founded in 2015, and we're located at Granta Park. So we're just south of Cambridge in Great Abington. But we do work with a global client base. So we work across multiple continents, various time zones. It's very, very interesting stuff. So we've got public domain collaborations with SOSI, Heptaris, LifeArc, and also with Grünenthal, based in Germany. And we work with a wide selection of companies, from virtual organizations and startup companies through to your large global pharma companies as well. So as Alicia mentioned, I'm a sales and marketing manager here, started in 2018. And from what I'm aware, I think Metrion had been a silver One Nucleus member for a couple of years before I started. And we've already been commissioning One Nucleus to assist with lots of projects since I joined, and also prior to that. Some examples, so we have an annual ion channel focused conference called the Cambridge Ion Channel Forum. And One Nucleus have been helping us with inviting participants, coordinating registrations, sending event reminders, joining instructions, various other tasks, and also welcoming delegates on the event day. I've also attended on Helix for the past few years, and in 2019 I was involved on the panel of a marketing debate chaired by Claire Thompson, who many of you probably know. She works for Agility Health Tech. She's excellent at providing a lively panel discussion, so I'm not sure if anybody attended that, but it was really enjoyable. In 2020, so last year, Metrion generated a company showcase video which featured several staff members talking about their roles and responsibilities at the company. We provided some case study examples of some work that we've done on various drug discovery programs, and that was showcased also, I believe, at Genesis as well. So we've also got that on our website if anybody wishes to take a look. So we regularly participate in One Nucleus events, marketing group webinars, including Bio Wednesday, and as Tony mentioned, the My Question Is networking lunch meetings that Alicia manages. So I submitted a question actually at the January event, which prompted a very interesting discussion on the role of CROs within the life science industry, which was fantastic. And I regularly attend the Genesis conference. Hopefully, be lovely to attend in person this year. If everything goes to plan, hopefully it will. We've also attended that meeting previously, either as an exhibitor, having a booth, or just as delegates. We advertise our electrophysiology vacancies often via the One Nucleus website. And One Nucleus also very kindly often feature our press releases on their website. Which is, it's nice to see our news getting out there, and that's fantastic. Trying to think what else. We've done some international conferences and received some very generous discounts via One Nucleus. We've actually just taken advantage of their Nordic Life Science Days opportunity to, my colleague Anka will be attending that this year as a delegate. That's a digital event. And we're looking forward to many more events this year, virtually and potentially in person, as everyone is hoping everything goes to plan and we can get back out there and like Quintin says, get shaking people's hands, or at least doing the little elbow bump. Like Quintin said, I welcome any questions, and thanks again for inviting me and for some fantastic presentations. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Sophie. And we are sort of almost up to time, but if anyone does have any questions and can stick with us, then I know that we're more than happy to sort of stay on the line. So is there any sort of question? I mean, I mentioned the chat box, there's nothing in there. However, if for those who are avid Zoom users, it's easier for you to use the raise hand function. If you'd like to do that now, I can keep an eye out. So it's bottom right hand corner reactions, and then you can click raise hand. So by all means, if that's easier and quicker, please go ahead and we can take any questions. I should also mention that myself and Joe will be doing event follow-ups to each of our respective networks, and as part of that, absolutely more than happy to connect anyone if they want to follow up with us to say, actually, this was interesting, I do have a question, please do reach out and utilize us to make those connections. I realize that sometimes things don't occur straight away, so it might be something that comes to you later on, and that's what we're here for, to help you make those connections as well. So just keeping an eye out to see if there's any questions come through. Oh, we do have Dr. Desai. I think I've said that correctly. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, hello. My name's Aditi Desai. I'm a doctor working in the maternity sector for the last 24 years. So I just was quite excited to know about Shore Pulse. I had heard about this and had delved into some of the details a little while ago. And it's amazing the work that you're doing, because you can accurately measure vital signs for little babies, which is monumentally challenging. my question to you is, when is this technology really available? Because we want to get it at Wolverhampton, which is a large hospital.
Yeah. So if you can hear me, let's pick up after the call. We're very keen. We're CE approved, and we had some discussions with a couple of your colleagues, Dr. Gurusamy, before lockdown. Sorry, before the pandemic sort of swept a lot of clinical evaluation work aside. But I'll certainly. I think I'll probably have your email address, so I'm very happy to pick that up with you. We'd be delighted to take that forward. Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I can't see any further hands raised at the moment, and aware that we are up to time. I'll probably suggest that, oh no, we've got one coming, sorry. Let's, 1 second. It's for Quinton again. Have you had any liaisons with Cambridge Hospital, Quinton, on the new device?
We've had, thank you very much. We had some interest in actually sort of more on the paediatric cardiology side than the maternity services, but be very keen to understand where that question's coming from, because Cambridge is obviously a very significant and important academic and clinical centre. So I think that's come from someone at the MIC. Be very happy to.
Yeah. It's come from, sorry, Quentin, it's come from me, Jackie Green at the NIHR Brain Injury MedTech Cooperative.
Okay.
So we have theme leads spanning all of brain injury, and some of that does delve into paediatrics and neonatals. And one of our theme leads, or two of our theme leads, Professor David Rowich and Topan Austin, I'm sure would be keen to have some discussions with you on this new device. Okay. Maybe it's something that we can exchange details and take up afterwards.
Are you on LinkedIn, Julie?
I am on LinkedIn, but you can probably find our contact details more readily on the NIHR Brain Injury website. But if you drop me your contact details, I can liaise with you. We deal with everything in unmet needs. As I say, we're funded by the directly by NIHR and Department of Health, and we deal with all unmet needs around brain injury. So it crosses all sorts of paths, rehabilitation, stroke, etc., down into paediatrics and neonatals. So I'd be very interested.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Julie.
And thank you all for the positive comments in the chat box as well. I'm glad to hear that the overviews were useful. And thank you also for those sharing useful links as well that others may find of interest. That's brilliant. We've got Chris Warwick has just said, if any SMEs are keen to identify and collaborate with innovation-minded clinicians, and has provided a link for more information. And then, yeah, thank you for the useful overviews for Darren and Tony. That was brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So I'm mindful that we are now up to time and that potentially others may have other engagements to get onto. I just like to thank our speakers again for today and for everyone who has stayed on the line and joined us. And myself and Joe will be in touch with follow-ups. And if you wish to reach out to us further for connections, then please feel free to do so. Yes, we look forward to more joint activities. Thanks, Dave, for that comment. Thank you in the chat box there. So brilliant stuff. And I'd like to wish everyone a good rest of the day, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.